Any persons having any business before this honourable court now draw nigh. Give your attendance and you shall be heard. God save the Queen.
Admission of lawyers. Rochelle Alvar.
May it please the court, I move that Rochelle Alvar be admitted as a lawyer to this honourable court.
Let Rochelle Alvar be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Andrew John Anthony Attard.
May it please the court, I move that Andrew John Anthony Attard be admitted as lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Andrew John Anthony Attard be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Clancy Calder Bennett.
May it please the court, I move that Clancy Calder Bennett be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Clancy Calder Bennett be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Rayanne Cherry.
May it please the court, I move that Rayanne Cherry be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Rayanne Cherry be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Monica Fetus.
May it please the court, I move that Monica Fetus be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Monica Fetus be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Renee Kim Howard.
May it please the court, I move that Renee Kim Howard be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Renee Kim Howard be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Ashley Claire Estelle Swain Lister.
May it please the court, I move that Ashley Claire Estelle Swain Lister be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Ashley Claire Estelle Swain Lister be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Munira Mamoon.
May it please the court, I move that Munira Mamoon be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Munira Mamoon be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Rupal Prarak Patel.
May it please the court, I move that Rupal Prerak Patel be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Rupal Parak Patel be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Anastasia Robinson.
May it please the court, I move that Anastasia Robinson be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Anastasia Robinson be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Oliver Jonathan Charles Sinclair.
May it please the court, I move that Oliver Jonathan Charles Sinclair be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Oliver Jonathan Charles Sinclair be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Elena Suda.
May it please the court, I move that Yelena Suda be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Yelena Suda be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Madeline Jane Tate.
May it please the court, I move that Madeline Jane Tate be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Madeline Jane Tate be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Michelle Janine Goko Tenedero.
May it please the court, I move that Michelle Janine Goko Tendero be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Michelle Janine Coco Tenedero be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Isabel Lucy Vaughan.
May it please the court, I move that Isabel Lucy Vaughan be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Isabel Lucy Vaughan be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Savina Wong.
May it please the court, I move that Savina Wong be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Savina Wong be admitted as a lawyer of this court. It will be necessary for those persons whose admission has been moved to make the oath or swear an oath or make the declaration. So could all those being admitted today please stand up but remain in your current place.
Rochelle Alvar. Andrew John Anthony Attard. Clancy Calder Bennett. Rayanne Cherry. Monica Fetus. Renee Kim Howard. Ashley Claire Estelle Swain Lister. Munira Mamoon. Rupal Prarak Patel. Anastasia Robinson. Oliver Jonathan Charles Sinclair. Yelena Suda. Madeline Jane Tate. Michelle Janine Goko Tenedero. Isabel Lucy Vaughan. Savina Wong. Do you severally swear or declare and affirm that you will truly and honestly conduct yourselves in the practice of a lawyer of the Supreme Court of New South Wales and that you will faithfully serve as such in the administration of the laws and usages of this state, according to the best of your knowledge, skill and ability. Would you please say, "So help me God," or "I do"?
Please be seated. Now that the formal part of the proceedings has ended, I'd like to warmly welcome you to the Supreme Court of New South Wales. Present with me on the bench today is Justice Hoban to my right, who is the Chief Judge of the Common Law Division of the Court, and Justice Brereton to my left, who is a member of the Court of Appeal. Together, we constitute the court that has, in exercise of its jurisdiction, admitted you to practice. As we gather here today, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We recognise the long-standing and enduring customs and traditions of Australia's First Nations and acknowledge with deep regret the role our legal system has had in perpetrating many injustices against Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. To all the new lawyers here today, welcome to the profession. Today is a day for celebration. You have all worked extremely hard to get here, through caffeine-fuelled nights, trying to solve obscure problems, reading countless wafer-thin pages of textbooks, and more cases you can hope to remember. Don't worry, there's no need to remember almost all of them. You have entered the world of eggshell skulls, encountered the mysterious reasonable person, and have understood that the Constitution consists of so much more than the vibe of the thing. In becoming a lawyer, you have today joined a centuries-old profession with ancient origins. The custom of advocates swearing an admission oath dates back to the 12th century. This court first admitted lawyers to practice in 1824, and by 1830, the names of lawyers were entered onto rolls in this state. You have now become part of this tradition almost 200 years later. Perhaps for some of you, or for your family and friends, that's how long it feels that you've been studying. On that note, I am pleased to welcome those with you today or watching on live stream. For many of you, the support of your family and friends has been invaluable. No doubt they've also often been on the receiving end of your finely polished skills of argument and persuasion. I do hope you take the time today to thank them. The oath or affirmation you have made today is a serious one and deserves solemn regard. Whether you work in private practice, at the bar, in a community legal centre, or an entirely different field, you should be known for your honesty, your integrity, and your commitment to justice. It is in acknowledgement of this weighty responsibility that we observe today's unique formalities, including the moving of lawyers, swearing of oaths, and even our somewhat unusual choice of fashion. On a lighter note, on one occasion some years ago, I remember a young member of the audience asking if we were doing Santa photos after the ceremony. Unfortunately, I had to disappoint him. However, although we mark this occasion with formality and tradition, not everything in the legal profession remains unchanging. You'll be unsurprised to hear that last year we had to adapt quite a bit. COVID-19 meant a rapid shift to increase use of virtual courtroom setups and technology to ensure access to justice continued in the midst of a pandemic. Things didn't always go smoothly, as those with me on the bench can probably attest to. Although I must say my fellow members on the bench today were some of the least complaining of the judges. But there have been real difficulties to grapple with in terms of open justice, effective communication, fairness to participants, and occasionally a lawyer might even get stuck behind a Zoom kitten filter. But for all the challenges we faced, the impetus is greater than ever before for us to prioritise flexibility and accessibility. Better use of technology and increased working from home arrangements have profound implications for how our legal system interacts with many people, including those in rural or remote areas, those with a disability, medical conditions, or carers' responsibilities. As the newest members of the profession, you are at the forefront of innovation in the law and have a unique opportunity to see through changes so that justice is done openly and equitably. There are, of course, other changes which deserve attention. When we think of the diversity of the legal profession, we encounter the duality that we have come very far, but that much still needs to be done. Though women were originally not permitted to practice, since 2018, women have made up more than half of all the solicitors with a practising certificate in New South Wales, and currently make up 63% of solicitors under the age of 30. Women occupy many of the most senior positions in the law, including, of course, the Chief Justice of Australia. However, women continue to face challenges of representation, including amongst judges of this court, and as has been recently revealed, amongst barristers in speaking roles before the High Court. It is heartening to see that the local court of New South Wales has almost achieved gender parity amongst magistrates, but we must not be complacent about these issues. There are other noticeable diversity concerns that we must face head-on. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and people from diverse cultural backgrounds continue to be alarmingly unrepresented in the legal profession, particularly within the judiciary and the ranks of senior practitioners. We must also be alert to barriers to the profession for people from less privileged backgrounds. Law should not be a profession for the wealthy, and the idea that students may be dissuaded from studying law by the cost of a law degree, which this year has again increased, or because of other systemic issues, is troubling. Not just this, but we will only achieve a truly diverse profession when barriers to advancement are broken down and people from different backgrounds are properly supported in a collegiate and inclusive environment free from harassment and discrimination. These issues are fundamental to a just and transparent legal system and henceforth to the legitimacy of the rule of law. We need diverse representation amongst advocates and judges so that all people who become involved in our justice system can be properly heard and fairly engaged with by a system reflective of our broader community. Despite these challenges, there is real scope for change. There is far greater diversity of background amongst junior lawyers than those who have been around for as long as me. To prove it, you only need to look around this courtroom at your fellow admittees and then at the paintings on the wall. You are in a unique position as new lawyers who are entering the profession at a time when your words and actions are having an impact for good. You are being heard and taken seriously when you agitate to correct injustices, whether it be speaking out about unsustainable working cultures, sexual harassment or bullying within the profession, unfair laws or systemic failings affecting our society's most vulnerable. I urge you to speak up for the things that matter. You are the future of the profession and will steer the course which it takes. As a lawyer, you will also need to make difficult ethical decisions at times. With regards to our personal characteristics, lawyers have been the butt of jokes for centuries, from Shakespeare to Dickens, for example. Cynics would say, of course, there are only a handful of lawyer jokes, all the rest are true stories. But jokes aside, you must use the tools you have developed to think critically and not compromise on your fundamental duties to the court and the administration of justice, as well as other ethical duties which you must uphold. Now that you are lawyers, you can get paid to argue instead of just arguing for free. Of course, there is a lot more to it than that. You are an advisor, a problem solver, a mediator, and an advocate for the marginalised. As you go about your day-to-day work, remember that you're not merely dealing with the law in a vacuum as a series of abstract propositions, but law as it applies to people's lives. For this reason, you must strive to deliver legal services competently and fearlessly with courtesy and integrity. Justice Gageler, before he became a High Court judge, once said, "You must be prepared to give the same answer to the same questions for the same reasons, no matter who asks the questions or for what purpose or in what context the asking may occur." This is in fact foundational to upholding the rule of law. For those of you who will practice law, the way you communicate information to others will have profound consequences for access to justice. For a non-lawyer, law is often incomprehensible. One of your roles as a lawyer will be to make law accessible to others sometimes by deciphering legal complexities, other times by deciphering poor legal drafting, and sometimes both. One thing you will regrettably strike throughout your career is legislation which seems carefully crafted with the object of ensuring that no one can understand it. Your task is not just to understand it, but to explain it clearly to those whose rights and interests are affected by others. As lawyers, we must also not keep the law locked up as something mysterious, knowable only to us. We must come down from an ivory tower of that nature. A client, reading your advice, should be empowered to understand your meaning, not mystified and confused. So be clear and concise in your writing and your speaking. Plain English is powerful. Consider, do I really need to say aforementioned or herewith? Must I sprinkle in that Latin phrase? Should I really use double negatives, tautologies and wordy clauses that take up a whole page? The answer to that question, when you think about it, is obviously no. The best advocates can make their points simply and succinctly. I must say some of the most experienced lawyers and judges could also use that reminder. But don't pick up bad habits from those of us who are old and crusty. I also want to speak about failure. I would not be surprised if there were quite a few overachievers and perfectionists in the room today. Even so, at various points of your career, you will make mistakes, some of them more serious than others. When you do make mistakes, your commitment to honesty, integrity and the administration of justice means that you must take responsibility, correct what you can and learn from those errors. You must fail at times in order to grow. I myself have made many mistakes over the year, too many to remember. But what is important is that you try not to make the same mistake twice. Now, even as Chief Justice, my decisions have, on occasions, been successfully appealed to the High Court. At this point, I'm probably obliged to tell you that the High Court is never wrong. But in fact, sometimes, even dissenting High Court judgments have later become the law. None of us are perfect. Finally, I want to emphasise that your mental health is extremely important. Now, this might sound unexpected at this type of ceremony, but the law is not everything. There may be times when you feel overwhelmed, burnt out or distressed. If you do, you should not be afraid to seek professional help or take a step back when you need to. Also remember that the law is a collegiate profession and in times of difficulty, the support of your peers will prove invaluable. In that vein, although you might find it hard to believe, I was admitted quite a long time ago. I lost my first case and I lost many more after that. Certainly I lost more than I won. But throughout my 35 years in practice, I could always count on other barristers on my floor to share my disappointment at the unfairness of the verdict, the sly tactics of opposing counsel, and most often, I regret to say, the obtuseness of the judge or judges who are hearing the particular case. I must say I don't include either of my fellow judges on the bench in that comment. So on behalf of all the judges of the Supreme Court, I once again congratulate you on your admission and warmly welcome you to the legal profession. The Court will now adjourn.
All stand.